This channel is supported by Truefire.
Well, what is this all about then? It's the Truefire Summer Music Festival. What I'm going to tell you about, you can get 1 month of all access for just $1. The all access, you can dip in and out of every single course on Truefire, so that's a really great way to get some awesome courses down you.
I bought this guitar like about a week ago. It showed up, and I thought I had some tuning stability issues, and I think this is, for me, the number one thing which can make or break a guitar. Tone is what it is, like, things about a guitar can be changed, and playability and all of that, but I find that I have kind of a short leash when it comes to trying to play something on guitar. If it doesn't stay in tune, like, what's the point? And this even, like, to some points where this is unfair, where I sort of feel like this guitar is the guitar which I can come to most often, and the tuning just doesn't seem to really drift on it at all. So I can come to this guitar like I did for this video, not really tune up, and it still seems to stay relatively in tune. So that's kind of nice. And then, you know, so I wanted to do a video kind of talking about this aspect a little bit and finding where some of your points are which can cause a guitar to be slipping out of tune. So I used the help of a stewmac article, which hopefully can point us in some directions here as well. One of the most important things that I've found is that once you've tuned your guitar, strung your guitar, you definitely need to be stretching the strings out. So I kind of give it a fair amount of this, because this is an area where you can actually find that whatever you've done at this end of the guitar is actually not stable. So for me, my preferred tuners are vintage style Strat or Tele tuners, like the old Fender ones. These ones go through the post, and I find those to be a little bit, I trust them less. So what I find you might need to do is kind of just sort of deliberately overbend and deliberately overstretch. And particularly with the Les Paul recently, I found that the E string, when I restrung it and top wrapped it, that was slipping, and that was kind of frustrating. Again, I've got quite a short patience for this. So I did look at like the ideal way to string through one of these And basically on stewmac, I'll just show it here. Put your string through, leave a few inches of slack, and then make a hard bend, and then give it half wrap and pull back, and then tidally go underneath that with the wraps. And they say like 4 to 6 wraps here, I think, or 3, and then 4 to 6 on these bigger ones. Now, if you've got locking tuners, this is something you don't necessarily need to worry about as much. One other area that I find, and this to me is a little bit less of a well understood thing, I think this might be the sort of thing that might be best off explained or dealt with by a luthier, but the nut can actually grip your strings, and particularly with new guitars out of the box, or guitars that have been refretted with a fairly dodgy nut job like this one, what you find is that these strings can kind of grip. And in one extreme case, I did find that as I bent, it was on a Schecter actually, I did this, I could hear the nut pinging as it released. Now that's not normally the case, but some of these nuts I think these days are milled at the factory, and so this can be one area where there's not really been a human on it. And another thing is, if the nut is not cut well, you're going to get bad intonation here, as it will be too high, this string. So when you press on the first couple of frets, you'll find that actually your guitar sounds out of tune there. Versus, you know, when you play up here, so there's intonation at this end and this end. So the nut really, and the stewmac video did kind of confirm this, is probably the most important thing. The very least you could do is to stick a bit of graphite in there, and hopefully that becomes a point where the string passes through cleanly without catching. I think that is really the point that we're trying to get to, is that this is less of a point of friction and more just a point that it sits on. But yeah, the string retainer, I think, is designed to, who knows what it's really designed to do. Does it help? I don't know. Again, this might be an area that you might want to put a bit of lubrication on just to make that move a bit better. Trems, I actually had the Gretsch, Orange Gretsch, I had some real difficulty getting that guitar to stay in tune, and it's something that totally sours me on that instrument. That's got a Bixby on it, which looks like a bit of a nightmare in terms of intonation, actually having something stable. Obviously, like a Telecaster or something fixed bridge, you'd imagine would be better in terms of sheer stability, but similar sorts of things that you're looking for, I presume. The other thing with a trem is that you'll find that as you bend, depending on how many springs you got, this trem might move the unit. So that's another area where you can lose a bit of tuning stability. But particularly, you know, if you've got a nut which is going to catch, on some strings, what you find, and this happens all the time with guitars that come out of the boxes, as you do some trem work, parts of the nut that are less well cut, those strings will probably return flat or sharp, where like they're getting caught here. So I think the nut is maybe the most important part of this. But in any case, for me, what I find is that some of my favourite guitars are just ones that I can rely on to basically be in tune all year round. And it sounds really daft, doesn't it, to be honest, but just one of those things where I pretty much feel like I could probably show up to a video and play this. I haven't tuned this. Just pick this one up. I'm going to need to tune it. One other thing, actually, we're talking about intonation. There are great guides on how to set intonation. Something you can do yourself. Essentially, I think we're actually returning a bit sharp there. One of the things, so you move your saddle that way or that way, depending on whether you're sharp or flat. If you have a guitar that sits unplayed for a little bit, one of the things that I find is that you get some sort of build-up of crud underneath the string, and wiping that off either with your finger or with an old sock or something like that actually does make a difference to how the guitar intonates. Another thing that it took me a while to sort of listen to other people on is that. So as I tune, go underneath the note and then come back up. Don't tune. Don't tune down into the note, only tune up. Is kind of one of those tips that Bukovac gave. And also think about like guitars like the Telly. This is going to be a compromise. This guitar is not going to intonate perfectly anyway because of this little design. One other thing is that if your neck relief gets too high or too low, that really does change the intonation as well. So there's a whole bunch of variables to be thinking about this. But when you're find a guitar that will stay in tune for you at all times, I think it's just really reassuring. Like that D. It's a bit flat now, right? That's, to me, the most important part about a guitar. So anything I can do to try and improve that stuff, whether it is like making sure when you string up the guitar that you've got a guitar string that's not slipping. I find the vintage tuners best for that. I guess locking tuners are a great bet too. That's one. Lubricate the nut. That's two. You know, those are the main things, and making sure that you've not got crazy relief and that the strings are clean-ish on the underside. I think those are some of the things that I like to try and do to give my guitars the best chance of staying in tune over time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, maybe keeping a guitar out of direct sunlight might be a good idea because it will get like hotter and colder throughout the day, and these things are maple and that can pull around the tuning stability too.